Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're doing something a little different.
Yeah, shifting focus quite a bit.
Instead of the big picture global stuff, we're zooming right in. We've got these incredibly detailed, long-running gardening notes.
From a single gardener, yeah. Part 694 is the latest one we looked at, but it connects back quite a way.
And it all centers on just one plant, a very striking tropical one.
It's a fascinating micro study, really, from, macro systems to just this plant. But the level of detail is amazing.
It really is. And it's not just about, oh, look, a pretty flower. It's about the whole process, right? The patience involved.
Exactly. And how we even look at plants, how appreciation can be so subjective, even for something bold and, obviously tropical.
So here's the mission for you today. We're going to pull out the key stuff about this plant, the Heliconia psittacorum Andromeda.
Why it's used so much, why it took this gardener ages to ID it.
And this quirky little detail, this disagreement the gardener has with, well, maybe popular opinion about its looks.
We're basically giving you the crib sheet on this specific Heliconia.
But to get the payoff in the latest note, part 694, we need to rewind a bit.
Yeah, you got to go back to understand the aha moment.
Okay, let's dig in. These notes, they show quite a timeline. The whole discovery process actually started way back. There's a reference to part 592.
Right. So that's over 100 entries earlier in this person's series.
Which could be months, maybe even longer.
Easily. Could be a year or more. That's a lot of observation time.
And that time gap itself is pretty interesting.
It's key. Back in part 592, the author found this clump of plants, really lush, looked great, fantastic foliage.
Vigorous, healthy, ornamental, the notes say.
Exactly. But no flowers. So the identity. Just a guess at that point, lots of potential, but zero certainty.
So hang on. The author basically just waited for over 100 entries just for the big reveal.
Uh-huh.
Is that dedication? Or is that just, well, pure gardening obsession?
Maybe a bit of both. It's that mix you find in really specialized hobbies, isn't it? That deep focus plus incredible patience.
I suppose so.
You see, the foliage on a lot of these tropicals, especially things in the ginger family like heliconias, they can look really similar.
Okay. So you can guess from the leaves, maybe the shape or texture.
Yeah, you can hypothesize, you look at the growth habit, but for the final, definite identification, you really need the bloom. That's the clincher.
And that moment finally happened in these recent notes.
It did. The author, Ang, passed by that same spot just recently, and boom! Flowers. The shape, the size, that really vibrant color, it all clicked. The notes say it right there. Without a doubt, Heliconia psittacorum, Andromeda.
So that initial look, all that waiting, it actually paid off.
It did. Sometimes you just have to be patient and let the subject, reveal itself.
Okay, mystery solved then. We have a name, Andromeda. Now, what's its deal? The notes seem to suggest it's not exactly some rare, delicate thing.
Oh, not at all. It sounds more like a reliable workhorse, actually.
A workhorse?
Yeah, what's interesting is, the hunt for the ID was long and personal, but the plant itself, Heliconia psittacorum, is super common.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Described widely as just a staple landscape plant in tropical, subtropical places.
Okay, so that tells you it's tough.
Right. Resilient, easy to grow, easy to propagate, which makes it great for nurseries and landscapers, commercially very viable.
That makes sense. Availability drives use. So what do designers typically use it for? What job does it do in a landscape?
Its main roles are for borders and for mass planting, filling spaces.
Creating impact quickly.
Exactly. You want immediate volume, high impact. This is a go-to. Designers often aren't zeroing in on the tiny details of one flower. They're thinking about the overall visual effect. The massive green, the pops of color from the blooms, usually seen from a bit of a distance.
So it's kind of like the visual shorthand for paradise.
That's actually a perfect way to put it. It brings that bold, architectural, definitely exotic vibe instantly.
That tropical feeling.
Yep. If you need a planting bed to just scream tropics, but without needing super fussy care, Heliconias, especially Andromeda, they deliver that visual drama, reliable contrast against all the green.
Okay, if it's the shorthand for paradise, you'd think everyone would just love it, right? But Ang's notes, they throw in a curveball.
Yes, the gardener's critique.
Ang is thinking about using it in a personal project, a new tropical garden.
Right, and that shifts the perspective, doesn't it? From public, mass appeal to, private, intimate detail.
And that's where it gets interesting. The notes have this very specific, almost quirky complaint.
It really shows how subjective appreciation can be, doesn't it?
So what is it? What's the issue? This is what I find fascinating about these notes. Ang doesn't just idea to move on. There's immediate critical thought.
Ang states quite clearly they're not particularly keen on its blooms when viewed from above.
From above. Okay, that's specific. Why?
It's a really technical observation, actually. It gets right down to the plant's structure, its architecture. We need to unpack that a bit.
Go on. Why does looking down on it change things so much for this gardener?
Okay, so first, you need to know what you're actually looking at with a Heliconia flower. That bright color we see, that's not the real flower.
It's not.
No, it's a specialized leaf structure. It's called a bract.
A bract.
These bracts are thick, waxy, super colorful, and they're layered. They form these sort of canoe or boat shapes. The actual flowers are tiny, pretty insignificant, tucked away inside those bracts.
Ah, so the bracts are like these flashy protective sheaths.
Exactly. Highly dimensional structures. So when you look at a heliconia from the side, at eye level,
You see the layers.
you see the structure, the depth, how the reds and yellows and oranges layer up on those bracts. That's what gives it that bold, 3D visual punch that designers love.
But when you look straight down on it, the overhead view,
That three-dimensional quality kind of collapses. You lose the layering, the structure. You're mostly just seeing the top surface of the highest bract.
ah, I see.
And it often loses that dynamic play of light and shadow that makes the side view so interesting. So for a gardener like Ang, who's really appreciating the engineering of the plant, that overhead view hides the very thing that makes it special, that complex, stacked form.
That's fascinating. It really highlights perspective, doesn't it?
Mm.
Same plant, same genes, doing the same job in the landscape.
But how you choose to look at it totally changes its value, at least its aesthetic value to the observer.
Right.
And the notes acknowledge this. Ang says, this is personal preference. Others may actually prefer that top-down view.
Maybe they like the block of color.
Could be. Maybe they prefer that solid wash of color you get from that angle. But for Ang, the detail-oriented observer, the real beauty needs that side view, the elevation that reveals the structure.
It really proves that proper critical analysis, whether you're looking at a plant or, an economic report, depends on finding the best angle to view it from.
Absolutely. It's about seeking the optimal viewpoint.
Okay, so this plan, it takes ages and patience to identify properly. It gives you instant, massive visual drama for landscaping.
But it's also subject to this really specific, almost technical critique when someone looks closely.
Right, and this is where it gets practical for you listening.
Yeah.
Someone who's maybe intrigued by this,
Yeah.
but isn't about to dig up their whole yard tomorrow.
Exactly. The low-stakes experiment approach.
How does that apply here?
Well, Ang loops back to something really practical. This plant, Heliconia psittacorum Andromeda, it does really well in a container.
Ah, container gardening.
Yes, and that's key because a container lets you observe it closely with low commitment.
You can satisfy your curiosity about growing it, seeing what it's like, without the massive effort or cost of planting it in the ground.
You're isolating the variable. You control the soil, the water, the location much more easily. You can even move it around to test Ang's theory about the viewing angle.
Oh, that's clever. Put it on a stand, look at it from the side, put it on the ground, look down.
Exactly. You can see that lush foliage grow, see if you like the blooms from above or from the side, all without that pressure of a permanent landscape decision. It's the perfect way to test drive a bold, exotic plant in a manageable way.
That really feels like the big takeaway for someone learning about anything complex, doesn't it? Start small, contained, isolated. Don't try to landscape your whole brain at once.
Precisely. The lessons we pull from just these few gardening notes are pretty profound when you think about it. We started with part 694, looking back to part 592.
All about this one plant, identified only after a long, obsessive wait.
Right. So the key points we've pulled out for you are, first, patience pays off. Identifying the heliconia needed the bloom, highlighting that difference between just leaves and the definitive flower structure.
Second, it's a landscape powerhouse. Common, tough, delivers that big, bold, tropical look reliably.
And third, beauty is in the eye and the angle of the beholder. That discerning gardener's critique about the overhead view versus the side view of the bracts shows how important perspective is for appreciating complex details.
It's amazing how much depth you can find in observing just one common plant.
It really is. And if we tie this back to the bigger picture, that final thought in the source notes about using a container to satisfy curiosity, it's a great metaphor for your own learning journey.
How so? Connect those dots for us.
Well, think about it. If there's some big, complex, maybe popular subject out there, could be anything, tropical plants, sure,
Okay.
but also, say, economic theory or maybe a new technology, and it feels overwhelming.
Don't try to plant it everywhere in your mind all at once.
Exactly. Break it down. Find that smaller, manageable container, that single-focus project, that one core concept, that low-stakes test run. So the question for you becomes, what big, exciting, maybe slightly intimidating idea should you try growing in a container first? Just to satisfy that curiosity.
Start small, watch the details.
And see how the true identity of that idea eventually reveals itself, how it blooms for you.